The wind howled across the endless steppe. A boy clutched a small bow, eyes burning with anger and hunger. He would rise from nothing, to rule the world with iron and blood. Narration. Temujin was born in a harsh land, where survival was not given, it was taken. His father was poisoned when he was only 9, leaving him and his family alone against enemies, hunger, and betrayal. Yet, in the face of despair, something dark and unyielding grew inside him. A vision of power, a desire to control not just land, but hearts and bodies. The young boy learned the ways of the steppe, riding, hunting, and striking before the enemy could even see him. Every act of cruelty he witnessed, every betrayal endured, became a lesson in fear. He was not merely building an army, he was crafting a kingdom bound by terror and law, a system where loyalty was everything, and disobedience could cost life or soul. As he grew, so did the stories. Tribes whispered of his cunning, his unforgiving justice, and a vision of empire that no one dared challenge. The world did not yet know the full horrors that would follow, the hidden laws written in blood that would shape millions of lives. But even as he united the clans under his banner, Temujin's eyes turned to more than conquest. They turned to power over people's desires, to control what no sword could always reach: love, loyalty, and fear. For in the Yasa, his secret code, every action had consequence, and every sin, punishment beyond imagining. No law was written in ink alone. The steppe trembled under the Yasa, a code of blood and obedience. One wrong step could end a life, or an entire family. Narration. As Temujin's power grew, he forged a law unlike any other, the Yasa. It was a secret code, whispered in fear and obeyed without question. Loyalty was sacred, betrayal unforgivable, and every action under its shadow carried a price. The Yasa controlled everything. It dictated who could marry, who could fight, and who could live. It even reached into the most private moments, the heart, the bed, and the desires that men and women tried to hide. Temujin believed that to rule an empire, one needed not only soldiers but fear itself. Adultery was a crime punished by death. No one, not noble nor slave, could escape. Lovers caught together, even unmarried, vanished in flames or by the sword. Wives who betrayed husbands or husbands who betrayed trust were equally hunted. The Mongol court became a place where desire itself was dangerous, where secret glances could spark tragedy. In the villages, people whispered stories. A young woman vanished after a secret kiss. A man was executed for speaking to a girl not his wife. Fear became a silent ruler, binding hearts tighter than chains, ensuring loyalty through terror. Temujin himself watched from his tent, eyes cold and unyielding. Every punishment carried a lesson, every death a reminder. The empire belonged to him in every way, land, body, and soul. Soldiers obeyed not just for gold or glory, but because disobedience meant nothing but pain. Even among his generals, no one dared question him. Secrets were shared in hushed tones, and those who betrayed trust disappeared before the night ended. Temujin's vision was clear, a kingdom held together not by kindness but by the invisible hand of fear. Mini cliffhanger ending. Behind the golden tents of Genghis Khan's empire, the air smelled of power and perfume and fear. Beauty was both a gift and a curse, for in the great Khan's court, desire could mean death. Narration. The Mongol capital pulsed with life. Traders from Persia, slaves from China, warriors from every corner of the steppe. But inside the Khan's grand tent, silence ruled. Every servant knew that one wrong glance could end them. Every woman understood that her beauty might save her life, or destroy it. Temujin had many wives and countless concubines. Some were gifts from conquered lands, others chosen from defeated tribes. Yet each was bound by the same unbreakable law, loyalty to the Khan, body and soul. None could speak his name outside his presence. None could look upon another man without fear of death. Among them was Berta, his first wife, the woman who once shared his youth and hunger. But even she felt the cold distance growing between them. The Khan's eyes now drifted toward others. Women taken from conquered kings, noble daughters forced into his camp, trembling under the weight of a ruler who believed his blood was divine. To the Mongols, These unions were not only acts of pleasure, they were weapons of power. Each child born from Genghis Khan's seed was a living claim to new lands, a reminder that the empire's bloodline stretched beyond borders, beyond loyalty. The Yasa sanctified this, turning the act of union into a tool of rule. Rumors spread through the empire, whispers of women who disappeared after rejecting his will, or those who broke the Yasa's rules. A single rumor could end a dynasty. Fear kept the court silent even when the cruelty became unbearable. In the dark of night, soldiers would drag the guilty from their tents. No trial, no mercy, for Genghis Khan's word was the law, and in that law, love had no place. Berta often stood at the edge of her tent, staring into the endless steppe, remembering the boy who once hunted with her. That boy was gone, replaced by a man who ruled the world but lost his soul to it. When love turned to whispers, Genghis Khan turned to war. His rage became the law of the land, the swift, merciless, and drenched in blood. No sin went unseen, and no heart was safe. Narration: the empire stretched from the edges of China to the sands of Persia. The world trembled at the sound of Mongol hooves. But inside the Khan's tent, the greater war raged, not against enemies, but against betrayal, real or imagined. Genghis had begun to see shadows in every corner. A smile between two servants. A glance exchanged by a soldier and a woman. To him, these were not accidents. They were threats to his order, his law, his control. He summoned his generals, his sons, his wives, and his guards. His voice was cold, his eyes like steel. The Yasa must be obeyed. No one is above it, not even those I love. That night, dozens were executed. Soldiers accused of adultery were tied to horses and torn apart. Women were drowned in rivers to wash away impurity. Their screams echoed through the steppe, and still, Genghis did not blink. He believed terror was justice and that the world must fear him more than death itself. Berta watched in silence. The man she had once loved was now a god to his people, but a monster to himself. Even his sons began to fear him. One whispered that their father had become the very demon he used to warn them about. Yet in the darkness of his rage, Genghis believed he was saving his empire. Every punishment, every law, every execution, all meant to keep order in a world too wild to be ruled by mercy. But as the fires of execution burned across the plains, the empire began to change. Where there was once loyalty, there was silence. Where there was fear, there was resentment. Men obeyed his orders, but not his heart. Still, the Khan rode forward unstoppable, convinced that his cruelty was destiny. Every conquered city became a reflection of his fury. Women taken as trophies, men slaughtered for defiance. The Yasa followed him like a ghost, whispering its demands for blood. The great Khan stood on the edge of the world he had conquered. Behind him, cities in ashes, armies kneeling. Ahead, only silence. Even kings can command men, but never their ghosts. Narration: years had passed since the boy named Temujin became Genghis Khan, the ruler of all the steppes, the terror of the East, the storm that swallowed nations. His banners flew across deserts and mountains from the Great Wall to the Caspian Sea, and yet, the more he conquered, the less peace he found. The Yasa had bound his people, but it had also bound him. Every drop of blood spilled in its name became a chain around his own soul. The empire obeyed him, but out of fear, not love. Old age crept into his bones like winter wind. The roar of battle no longer thrilled him. He began to see faces in his dreams, faces of those he had condemned, women he had silenced, lovers torn apart by his law. Their voices whispered through the night, "You made us obey." But who obeys you now? Even his sons began to fight among themselves. Hungry for the throne, their hands stained with the same blood that had built their father's world. The very fear that had kept the empire together now tore it apart. One evening, Berta came to him. Her eyes, once bright with hope, now held only sorrow. "You wanted the world to remember you," she said softly. "And they will, but not for your mercy." Genghis turned away, his heart heavy. He had believed that power could outlast death, that the bloodline he created through countless unions would make him immortal. But in that moment he understood a cruel truth. Fear does not live forever. It dies with the man who creates it. As the final winter storm swept across the plains, the great Khan rode one last time. His warriors followed in silence, their eyes on the horizon. No songs, no laughters, only the sound of wind and hoofbeats fading into eternity. When he died, the world shook. His sons divided his empire. His laws faded and his name became legend. But for those who remembered his rule, one truth remained: that even the mightiest empire, built on terror and blood, cannot escape the judgment of its own shadow.